Hey everyone, and thanks for jumping back into the cryptoverse. Today, we're going to talk about Bitcoin, history in the making. If you guys like the content, make sure you subscribe to the channel, give the video a thumbs up, and also check out the Telegram channel, which you can find a link to in the description below. Let's go ahead and jump in. So we know that Bitcoin has gotten absolutely hammered over the last couple of weeks. What you're looking at right now are 2-week candles. Okay, so these are 2-week candles, not 1 week, which is what we normally look at, but 2-week candles. And while at the time of this video, we're not yet at a 2-week close, it's coming up here in a few hours, you can note that over the last 2 weeks, Bitcoin is down by approximately 42 to 43%. Now, it might not close at that level. Again, we have a few more hours, but the reason this is history in the making is because I'm unable to find any 2-week period where Bitcoin suffered a greater loss from open to close. Okay, and so we'll ultimately need to see where it ends up. If we get a rally before the close, then it's possible it doesn't close quite as far down. We know over here back in March that from the top of the wick to the bottom, it was about a 57 or 58% drop. This one from the top of the wick to the bottom is only about a 50% drop, but we're talking about from the open to the close. And you can see that this one is about 43% at the current time. The one back in March was around 37%. You know, if you go back further, you can find 20% fairly easily, 26%, 22%, 13%, 23. You go back even further, here's a 31%, 27%, 14, 24, 21. You can see all of these 20, 17, 14, 21, but none of them are above 40. I haven't been able to find a 2-week candle above 40. This one's 35. So what's interesting is that to some degree, we can no longer say that the new entry, the new people into crypto in 2021, they don't really, this isn't that, that we can't say that they don't really know what to expect, because now we can say over the last 2 weeks, they have experienced, at least as measured from open to close, we'll see where it closes. If it closes and we still are over a 40% drop, from open to close over a 2-week period, they will have experienced the worst drop in Bitcoin's history over 2 weeks, as measured from the open to the close. The worst drop in Bitcoin's history. So we can no longer claim that they don't know what they're in for, because we can say that they've experienced a 2-week drop more harsh than any of us have ever experienced before from the open to the close. So obviously things are somewhat bearish, and you guys know my thoughts is that we were always ahead of schedule anyways. But regardless, even if things do go down over the next few months, it really is hard for me to imagine us not getting a little bit of a bounce at some point. You can note that these were the prior weekly candle closes over here, and maybe we'll get a bounce off of these levels. But I think what's more interesting is that, Bitcoin can often do what we least expect. Okay, so when we were moving up, we barely got any corrections. Okay, notably, this was the primary correction before we got into this, month-long time frame of just moving sideways. And so when we look at this, while it seems unlikely that we could go straight down with it, without getting any types of relief rallies or anything like that, I do contend that there's a strong possibility that we do get a relief rally at some point. Now, obviously, people want to know where the bottom is, and again, I know a lot of people are pushing this V-shaped recovery. I really don't think we're going to get a V-shaped recovery here. I think we will get a recovery. I don't think it's going to be that quick of a recovery, okay? I really don't. I think it's going to take some time. Now, that certainly does not mean we cannot come back up and then everyone's going to start thinking we're just going to put in a new all-time high immediately. But even if something like this happens, I would say to be very cautious, especially on altcoins. Be very, very cautious, because it's really, really hard. It's really, really hard for us to immediately regain momentum after people are down so much. And one reason is because a lot of people will likely want to take some profits on their altcoins, especially if we do get a relief rally, because they got super scared down here. They finally know what is possible, And therefore, if Bitcoin does get a little bit of a relief rally sometime in the next few weeks, then they might be keen on taking profits or switching some of those profits over to a Bitcoin or a more stable crypto than the altcoin they've been holding for a long time because it was showed on Reddit or something. So I would say that in this type of environment, we need to be very pragmatic. That in the same way over here, momentum was up and things were likely to continue going up over then reversing. You can see sort of a momentum shift. Now things are going down. They're more likely to go down than not. I do think, though, what I would say, I do think things will turn around before we get to these levels. Okay, I don't think we're going to go back to those levels. So I would say I believe that Bitcoin will turn around well before these levels. A lot of times Bitcoin has this habit of, sort of overshooting where it should go in the short term, but then also correcting below where it maybe should go to. But I don't think it's going to go back to, say, $10,000. I really don't think it's going to go back to those levels. I would say that oftentimes the 200-week moving average is generally like the worst case scenario, at least on weekly closes. The 200-week is generally the worst. We put out a video a few weeks ago calling for what is the most bearish scenario. And we were speculating that maybe they would meet at 20K. Well, right now the 200 weeks only at like 12,573. So I mean, if we were to go straight down, that would be the 200-week moving average. My guess is even if this is a bear market for a few months, that it wouldn't be straight down anyways. And therefore, if we do kind of chop up and down like this, then this will continue to move up, and we'll meet it somewhere. We'll meet it somewhere in between, above where it currently is. But that doesn't necessarily mean that it has to go all the way back up to, say, 30K before we hit it. Okay, it doesn't mean we have to go to 30K before we hit it. So when we look at this move, we'll notice, that Bitcoin from the top here has had a 54.58% correction. Now, we've often compared things to 2013. And we know that in 2013, the correction was a bit more. It actually maxed out here. Really at close to, if you go to this wick here, all the way down here is about 80%. If you go over here, it's about 75%. If we were to do, let's say we were to go 70%. 70% would take us all the way down to just under 20K. That would be a 70% drop. So what I would say, a lot of people, I've seen a lot of people refer to me as the most bearish Bitcoin bull. I want Bitcoin to go to six figures, but I've often contended over the last few months that we were ahead of schedule here, and that a cool off phase or a consolidation phase is not necessarily the worst thing in the world. Now I'm looking at it and saying, whenever we do hit that bottom, wherever that bottom is, whether it ends up being, say, like the 50-week, the 100-week, the 200-week moving average, wherever we ultimately bottom and then consolidate out from, and again, I would expect it to be a grind. Okay, I would expect it to be a grind. Yes, any given day we could wake up and the price of Bitcoin's rallied $5,000. That doesn't mean we're out of the woods yet. And I think that's a common misconception that people will have, is that any time it moves up, that the whole bear side of the cycle is over. But we do know that it could take a while. So let's suppose we go down to the 50-week, which is just a few $1,000s below where we are. If we hold support there for a few months and then start trending up, I will be very bullish on Bitcoin on going to 100K. Okay, if we go even further down and go to, say, this one, then I'm going to be even more bullish. It's just going to be, the time frame's just going to be extended, and maybe even above 100K, maybe 150K or something. And I think that the lower we go, right, the lower that we go, the higher will ultimately fly, is what I think. This is what I think as we head into, the next phase of the market cycle. The lower we go, ultimately, the higher will fly. Now, it's easy for me to say something like that because there's no way we can verify it. I mean, there's no way we can, only one thing is going to play out, right? The price of Bitcoin is only going to do one thing. We're not going to be able to compare 1,000 different possibilities once it plays out. Therefore, it's not like we can check it and say, okay, well, if it had gone lower, it would have gone higher later on. But I do think, generally speaking, that if we get an immediate rebound and start moving up, then it likely will peak out sooner. than most people might like. But if we get sort of a reaccumulation window here for Bitcoin, then I think it provides a great opportunity for people to hop on board before moving to 100K. Now, I've said before, I don't think 100K has to come this year. I know that they can't upset people, but remember, Bitcoin's been really bullish for the last 15 months. Okay, and us cooling off for a few months is certainly not the worst thing in the world. Okay, I can assure you of that. It's not the worst thing in the world for Bitcoin to be cooling off for a number of months as we sort of shake out some of the new players and we reestablish some more core positions, probably made by a lot of institutions as they get ready for a move to the upside later on. And it might not necessarily peak this year. I cannot stress that enough. So again, history in the making. When you look at 2-week candles, history in the making. I mean, right now we're down about 44%, and I've never seen a 2-week candle close over 40%. So in order for us to close with basically 40% or higher, we would need to be closing below 34K. If you see us closing above 34K, then it might not be quite as bad. But right now we are looking at about a 44% drop over the span of 2 weeks. So let's keep an eye on things here because, obviously I know a lot of people would like a relief rally, and maybe this is the time to get one when we sort of had a pullback at that point on the way up. But I will say, if you go back and look at 2019, was it 2019? Yeah, it was 2019. If you go back and look at 2019, when we dropped below the 20-week, we actually rode the 50-week, not the 50-week, the 100-week. We rode the 100-week SMA for a few weeks before rallying back up. So while everyone would like a relief rally immediately, and we know that it could come, there's nothing necessarily precluding us from coming down and then moving up for a relief rally maybe in June or July. And then we'll see what happens if we actually can get back above the bull market support band, or if we get rejected and then continue coming back down. Remember, a lot of people like to assume that day trading is the best way to play these markets, but a lot of times things play out over months and months and months. And so if you're looking for the bullish case for Bitcoin to resume, you need to see that close above the 20-week moving average and then to continue higher. If we don't get that, even rallies in the short term can be cut short by that bull market support band. So that is the area to watch. One day, I do believe we will break it and we'll come out the other side. And those that took advantage of whatever accumulation phase is coming will have the most to gain. Other than that, we'll just have to continue to take things one day at a time. If you guys like the content, make sure you subscribe to the channel, give the video a thumbs up. And if you want to know how I'm navigating these markets, check out the sale on the premium list. You can find a link to that in the description below. Thank you guys for tuning in. Make sure you subscribe, click the bell icon to turn on your notifications, and I'll see you next time. Bye.